Attackers are only getting more proficient, so how can you proactively adapt your cybersecurity strategy? Core Security by Fortra helps you uncover and prioritize the risks that pose the biggest threat to your organization. Core Impact is a penetration testing tool that safely finds and exploits vulnerabilities using the same techniques as attackers. You can conduct advanced pen tests with ease using certified exploits and automation. Take your engagements further by pairing with our red teaming tools from Cobalt Strike and Outflank. Learn more at www.securityweekly.com/core security. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSA Conference 2023 full conference pass. RSA Conference will take place April 24th through 27th in San Francisco and on demand. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC 2023 and use the code 53UCybers. That's 53, the letter U, Cyber. We hope to see you there. All right, for our final interview today, we have Dr. Inka Karppinen joining us today to talk some BS. BS being behavioral science in the context of today's conversation. We're going to talk about how behavioral science can help to positively influence people's cybersecurity behaviors. Inka is the lead behavioral science scientist at CybeSafe. She's a cyber psychologist and mixed methods human-computer interaction researcher. She loves narrowing the research gap between academia and practice, creating a meaningful, positive impact on people's cybersecurity behaviors. Welcome to the show, Inka.
Thank you, Adrian. And yes, I am full of BS.
It's great. Yeah, so starting out real quick, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background. Like, how does a behavioral scientist get into cybersecurity? Did you start off with it, or did you go a more traditional route, and then something made you pivot into this industry?
I think that's I've gone through a very interesting route. So I started actually just moving from Finland to London, and ended up working, then decided let's go for university, do something that I enjoyed doing, which was psychology. And I worked and studied my bachelor's and master's courses, or throughout them, in pension industry. I did some banking, insurance industry as well, events, all that stuff. And all the way through, I went through the kind of psychology aspect of it. So I really enjoyed that. And ended up doing evening courses on occupational psychology. So that's all about organizational culture, performance management, training, what makes people tick in organizations. And somehow I ended up going for a PhD, because when you hit kind of a little bit of trouble with like credit crunch, what's your solution? Just do more study. So I ended up doing a PhD at University College London in Security and Crime Science Department. It was a doctoral training center. And through there, loved behavioral economics, behavioral science, persuasive technology. And I think I was kind of a social engineer, because I sat in computer science department and I was a psychologist. So when people talked about things like latex, I had no idea what it was. I thought it was the plastic sheet or something like that. So yeah, psychology has been always the red thread, and I ended up being at CybeSafe because they do behavioral security and try to protect people and help people. And that's another interesting or important point for my career, is always looking ways to help people and protect them.
Yeah, very, very mission focused. I find in CybeSafe, like that particular part of the industry, you find a lot of mission focused folks.
Yes, we are definitely focused on the cybersecurity and data analytics and how to actually measure behavior and help the organization to secure themselves. So it's revolutionizing the way society addresses the human aspect of cybersecurity.
So when we were speaking to prepare for this interview, accidentally discovered that Lisa Plagemeyer, who we love and we had on episode 299. just a few months ago, and I understand that you collaborate with Lisa on an annual report.
Yes, so we've been running for 2 years now. This is our third year. Our CAB report, which is Cybersecurity Attitudes and Behaviors report, and we actually call this "Oh Behave" because it's a little bit of a "Oh Behave" style of movie quote, basically. And we collect data between US, UK, Canada at the moment, and we are hoping to expand to other markets as well within Europe and perhaps even Australia or New Zealand this year, and collect a large data set and see what people feel about cybersecurity, what their attitudes are, what they're doing, what they're not doing, what are the reasons why they don't do something, and what are the reasons why they do things. So we can then, direct the campaigns, or we can help to protect society in that way.
And it's I think you working at CybeSafe, and I love that you could get a PhD, with a focus on what was it, security and crime science. Like that's
yes,
such a great opportunity, because oftentimes, we talk about lack of talent, or like we can't fill jobs and things like that. And every time I see someone like a behavioral scientist working for a security vendor or in a security role, it makes complete sense. So I sometimes wonder if at least part of our talent gap in the industry is due to a lack of imagination and creativity in hiring the right roles. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody with a background in security. We need people with backgrounds in all sorts of things to help us in the security industry.
Exactly, and it's all about human factors. So I often position myself as a user. So why don't I install this software updates? Why don't I apply multi-factor authentication? What is my barrier?
Right.
And it's sometimes when you're in technology, you kind of don't think of it as a user perspective very well, and you're just really focused on the tech bits of it, and you forget that we're all actually humans and treat them that way. So we create barriers most often than actually helpful solutions for people.
And just to understand your role a little bit more, is it mostly outward facing, supporting marketing, things like that, sharing your research, talking about your research, or are you also very involved on the product side, helping with product strategy, product development, product roadmap, that kind of thing?
Yes, so we have now a team of us. So we have another behavioral scientist and a user researcher, and then we have a director of science and research who is very well known academic in the industry, Dr. Jason Nurse. And we basically are focused on thought leadership as well as product. So it's been pretty much kind of fundamental research and applied research. So we are kind of doing the both worlds at the same time. My initial focus was on thought leadership projects. We did a project on quirks, which is basically was funded through the government agencies, through the risks network. And it looked at how can we increase human cyber resilience through personalization. So I was initially just doing thought leadership and then continued with the product related research. And now we are part of the squads. So we work cross departmental and cross squads and apply science there. So apply it direct to the product.
Awesome. So yeah, you mentioned quirks. Let's just dive into some of your actual research. What's a quirk?
Quirk is a personalization factor. So what makes us individuals different? And that's what we really focused on. So the identifying the personalization factors. So these can be our capability, opportunity, motivation theory. It's a behavior change wheel, basically, the inside of it. And then we have things like demographic factors. So we have age, personality, education levels. We have, I forgot most of them, but we got job roles, interests and preferences. So it really is a kind of, you can personalize and tailor cybersecurity training and awareness packages to actually address those. So one size doesn't fit all, basically. We are creating stuff that is tailored and fits for everybody, regardless of their background or their level of experience. And obviously, for those who are more experienced, we can tailor the content to be more interesting as well. And that's basically the project looked at those factors. And then we looked at the behavior change wheel, which in its heart, it's the COM-B model. And we applied behavior change techniques. And there are actually around 74 behavioral change techniques and around 24 modes of action. So that's like 93 techniques. And we focused on action planning, goal setting, behavioral practice, and risk messaging. So that was salience of consequences, basically how people feel about things when they're being, tailored by, you're over 55 years old, you might be at higher risk of style of scams and attacks than somebody who is a younger age group. So those are the kind of stuff that we looked at. And then we designed an intervention that was digital and trying to change people's cybersecurity behaviors towards better behaviors and encourage them to take action. And the cybersecurity behaviors we looked at particularly were around passwords. So password creation, password management, as well as two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication.
So all these different quirks and methods and characterizations, I imagine that the behavior change wheel is like a framework for understanding and categorizing all these things that you're describing? Yes. Okay.
It's a theoretical framework, and it was developed initially to use of kind of public health sphere. It's UCL Professor Susan Mickey, who is the guru of the behavior change wheel, and it's widely used on things like health-related behaviors, drinking less, stopping smoking, things like that, and how can we make people taking healthier choices. So we are trying to apply this, and we have successfully applied it in cybersecurity as well.
So obviously with behavioral science, it's all about figuring out what works for different types of people and trying to tailor content and messaging to them, right? But what are some of the surprising findings that you've had maybe in your research, different types of tactics that have worked to facilitate, good change or eliminate bad habits that you didn't expect before you did the research?
So I would say always kind of talking about why is the most important thing. Like it is like I see security as you have an elephant, you have a rider, and you have a path. And this is quite an interesting analogy. And the rider is somebody like the CISO, the security professional. The elephant is actually the workforce, the employees working for that organization. And then you've got the path, which is about the tasks and things that organization is trying to achieve and do every day. And it is like, you have to influence the elephant. So you have to get elephant moving. Otherwise, the rider can do everything. He can beat up, he can punish, he can try to encourage. But you know what? Elephant, it will move when it wants to move. It will, see an obstacle on the way of its path, it will stop doing it, or it changes the route. So we're kind of unpredictable, despite our best efforts to direct behavior towards security behavior, good security behaviors. It is really hard to do. So in a way, the motivation and the why is super important. So that's actually, I didn't realize before before joining in cybersecurity company that is actually the spice and key to everything. It is really, why should we take action? Why should we take action to protect ourselves? And when you explain that alone can influence the motivation, as long as you've got obviously opportunity to do it. So if the organization doesn't give the right tools to individual, just says go and apply multi-factor authentication or use a password manager, but then don't have it freely available or don't give the information how to do this, then even if they were motivated to do it, they won't do it. So it's kind of a balance of why and how. And yes, the capability is basically the training and awareness that alone necessarily doesn't lead to anywhere. So we need more of the opportunity and motivation aspect. So yeah, I guess that was the surprising aspect for me.
And over the years, I mean, I've heard about people trying to incorporate psychology into things like phishing testing and awareness programs. Yes. What do you think, other than the providing the why? What are some of the other things that really work? Because from where I sit, I don't think that awareness and education is the problem anymore. I mean, yes, to a certain degree, of course it is, but I think it's habits. And it's also that in the workplace, even though we say, don't click on links, don't open attachments, that's not really doable because as part of our daily tasks, we have to do some of this. And there are technical controls that help to a degree, and there are things you can do to watch out for obvious maliciousness, but you can't really train that out of people to say, I'm never clicking a link, because then employees would never get their work done. So how have things changed? How has this whole field, the scientific field, changed the game to influence behavior? Like you said, leading the elephant down the path, or even just letting the elephant find the best path.
Yes, so particularly in phishing, I find it really, the old theories are used by the cyber criminals. So basically, those influencing techniques by Robert Cialdini, the scarcity, the authority, liking, commitment, consistency, reciprocation. If criminals are using this is what makes people tick. Why aren't we not using them in cybersecurity training? And actually, in CyberSafe, we use these techniques as well to do our simulation emails. So simulation phishing emails. And we can get data to see what people are particularly vulnerable within that organization. So we can even look at our own organization, what we're vulnerable to, which is quite funny. And it just really depends on the moment. Like, the criminal just has to get you at the right moment. We're all susceptible to phishing. Like, whether you are IT security expert or whether you are just novice person, you know what, it just needs the right time and, the right circumstances for you to click on that link or provide even further information. So there are a lot of examples of this in research. A lot of the scams are now focused on things like button pressing or when people are job seeking, when they're most vulnerable, through LinkedIn, kind of apply here, provide a little bit of information on forms, and then all of a sudden you're actually given addresses, you're given personal details. So it's basically, they got everything, and then they just need that one thing to go further, and influencing techniques does that as well. So because of this commitment and consistency, so if we give a little, then we are more likely to give more. So because we already committed to taking that action. So definitely those old theories are influencing and used by the criminals, and we should be using them against them, really.
Do as the attackers do.
I think that brings up...
and they work 24/7. So we should work 24/7 and be protected. So have the updates installed, have the good passwords, strong and unique passwords, add on the 2FA, because they will never stop. We work 9 to 5, but you know what? Criminals work 24/7. So with hybrid environments as well, you bring your computer home, everybody got access to it, whoever is in your house, or you can lose it on the bus or train. It's not anymore kind of physical security is not protecting you in an organization. It really is kind of, we are everywhere now. We are online constantly, 24/7 as well.
So particularly with phishing testing, but not necessarily limited to that, I imagine that there is some danger there, and you have to find a line and find some kind of balance in discovering what people would do, what they're susceptible to, but there's a certain line that attackers will certainly cross, right after an earthquake or something like that. They'll pretend to, have some results of, people recovered from, like they'll absolutely cross that line, where it's not okay for your security department to cross. A particular example I remember is the Chicago Tribune. I think canceled everyone's holiday bonuses, and then the security team sent out a phishing test that said, oh, "No, actually, you are going to get your bonuses," and they had some success with that, and people were very upset when they found out,
Yes.
that was a phishing test. So how do you find that line and find that balance between what it's okay for an organization to do and to test their employees versus, obviously there's things the attackers will do that is just a line that we can't cross.
It comes to the ethics question, and as well as being ethical, we should always have empathy as well. So we shouldn't be, as cybersecurity professionals, sending simulations that are kind of almost playing on people's situations that are real and happening there, like those bonuses. It raises emotion, which also cyber criminals do. But in this case, simulations, we're not there to catch them. The point of simulation is not to go like, I got you, and now you're gonna be doing more training, or you get punished, or you're part of the stats that our phishing simulations are failing, and you need more training. It shouldn't be used that way. Phishing should be more positively framed as this is an educational factor, and these are the signs that you might look for, and they should be quite obvious, actually, because criminals are not, at the moment, they can't be bothered to do all those clever phishing techniques to everyday people. They are using the same templates, the rich prince contacting you, they got inheritance, or the army soldier coming to ask you money. All those are super, easy to spot, but people still fail for them. And those are the patients we should be focusing on, rather than the aspect of how can we get our employees to fail. That's wrong messaging. It should be more about how can we help people to protect themselves, and what is the minimum they need to know to have the maximum protection.
And kind of as a follow-up to that question, as someone who clearly has experience with multiple cultures, multiple countries, languages, do you have to build your content for a particular country or culture? Like, I imagine, what's effective in the UK is maybe not as effective in the US, and maybe that's not as diverse an example as I could have grabbed, but certainly, like, let's take the Middle East. Maybe what's effective in the Middle East is completely different from what's effective, in the US or the UK. Do you have to take all that into account when working with this and building this?
In a way, it depends. Always the thing about with psychological, like influencing techniques, for example, for phishing, they are the weapons of influence. And I think no matter what country you're from, you are going to fall for one of those. It's a no-brainer. We're all humans, But when you design for training, or you design for behavioral change, then you have to take into account the cultural aspects. And there are quite a few books on that topic as well. So when you deliver something for Eastern cultures compared to Western cultures is a little bit different. We haven't gone to that stage yet, but we are keen to look at those individual differences as well.
And getting into some of those differences, what are some of the surprising? I remember. So as an industry analyst, let me set up this question. Sorry, I used to field a lot of surveys, and I remember reading a book called Biology, BUI-ology, and I forget the name of the author, Martin Lindstrom, and he was somewhat famously like one of the first ad guy or marketing guy that use some neurological techniques, look at brain patterns and things like that to understand what people are thinking when they're taking surveys, when they're looking at advertisements and things like that, to understand the brain a little bit better. And I took away some interesting learnings from that book, but one that really stuck with me is that the way people complete surveys tends to be the way that they think you want them to answer, not what they actually feel. And I think you had some interesting results from something like this.
So yes, that's called the social desirability. And it's very common on, for example, personality tests. Nobody's going to admit that they, not very nice person. So, but if you ask the questions the right way, you might actually get to the core. So, for example, in cybersecurity, instead of asking, do you do this? Ask like, do you know any colleagues who are doing this? So are your colleagues, not reporting cybersecurity incidents or, overall? So they're not reporting them then about them. They are reporting the perception of the actual department or the organization. And that could give you a better picture, because nobody wants to admit that they are the ones who are like brushing things under the carpet, or if there is a security error or mistake, they just don't report it. And yeah, so definitely there is that social desirability bias in surveys and questionnaires. How we can combat that? It's another question through objective data, most likely. So we can triangulate more of the self-reports with what's going behind the platform, which we also do at CyberSafe. So we do metrics on, when people are clicking links, when they are creating passwords, things like that. Are they strong? Are they, and we send them the nudges as well, saying like, actually, your password is not as good as it should be. So perhaps you might consider changing that. So it has to be the opinion and objective data. Plus, you could also look at archival data, things like what are the accidents that have happened previously or the incidents in the organization, and really look at the overall picture to pinpoint where the problems are.
Yeah, predicting the future with because humans aren't going to change, right? So, if you see something, a behavior was common in the past, you can be pretty much guaranteed it's going to continue on into the future, right?
So yeah, it's part of the shadow security research that has been done on this. So we create shortcuts. Our focus is always on productivity, basically. So it's a shame that our job descriptions are not saying, you're going to do X, Y job, whether it's from finance to a receptionist, but you're going to do it securely. And these are the points that you have to do to be secure. So that could include cybersecurity, and often that's not explained to people. So yes, I do believe that cybersecurity could have a better reputation if we would actually include it within the main tasks. So the productivity would actually, we could create time to do cybersecurity training that would not disrupt the productivity too much. Because we always go the shortcut. We are humans. We take the shortcut, unless it has clear consequences to us. And in cybersecurity, often those are not clear. So if nothing happens, it's actually pretty good. Nobody's saying, oh, we're doing so well on cybersecurity, nothing has happened. But then something happens, and then we are just almost on the blame culture again. It's us and them, blaming the human and not the actual whole organization, the whole system where we got there. And we should encourage the positive culture of cybersecurity more.
I've personally experienced this both directly with processes that I have written and also as a consultant in other organizations. Something I learned the hard way. You write a process. Here's the correct way that this should be done. And then you actually go out and you look at how people are doing it, and they've completely ignored your instructions in the process, and they found a different way to do it. Because, of course, when I came up with that, I'm not the subject matter expert. I don't work in their job. I had no place writing up that process for something I didn't understand, and I didn't do any testing of it. So of course, human, like you're saying, are going to find the shortcut. They're going to do it completely differently. And if I had known that starting out and anticipated that, maybe it would have created a process that actually, matched what was being done in the environment.
Exactly. And it is often, sometimes it's, I did my PhD on physical security side. So I was part of a case study organization, and they focused on money deliveries, and they had a lot of money, and operator had to drive from A to B securely. And what happens when you have 20, 30 jobs on the day, there is traffic on a road, you get to your destination, but then already you're late for the next one. You're late for the next one after that. And out go the security policies, the way you operate safely. So one of them was even as simple as wearing a helmet. People were asked, why didn't you wear a helmet? And they go, actually, it's scratched because I didn't have a time to place it securely, and it was rolling around my van when I was driving. And now the visors are scratched and bumpy, and I can't see anything out of it. So I just rather go without the helmet. And obviously, if they go out without the helmet, they can get attacked, as well as carrying money procedures. They had certain procedures when they deliver, and those were skipped. And it was all because the main measurement for their job was, have you done your day's job, instead of have you done it securely. So there was a lot of the security culture issues there, and they had very, very many security rules and procedures that were created after the incident happened first time. So it's a bit like the James Reason's human error and the Swiss cheese, basically the framework. So you create more and more barriers to stop productivity.
Yeah, Swiss cheese framework. I love. Especially when talking about defense in depth, I think it's a useful model to use. But yeah, the specific from my question earlier, the specific example I loved when we're talking about surveys and people, if you ask them directly, they'll answer differently. Was you ask them if they would share their password? I think you said almost everybody says no, of course not. I'd never do that. And then when they're actually tested, I think you said 73% shared their password, which is like the complete opposite result.
It is interesting, that one. And then actually on that tab survey, the old behavior report that we do with National Cybersecurity Alliance, the last one said that 64% don't create unique and separate passwords, and they admitted to that. And you go like, why would they? They're hard to remember. They have no strategies to manage the passwords. They don't know, what a password manager is or how to use it. So I think on that report, it was 18% who said that they use standalone password manager. And that's really low numbers, So 40% said they just write it down on a notebook, which is kind of great if your notebook is secure, and it depends who you are. But it's our own practices are so different from what's the recommendations are. But then if we asked, we might lie sneakily. But these people actually said our main preferred method is notebook, and we don't really use any strong passwords or anything else.
Wow. Yeah, I think Katie had a question.
I do. You're talking about the culture of security in an organization, and I think that's fantastic. We do have to build a culture of security. What happens at an organization if executives or line of business managers disagree about the role that security plays in the organization and how it affects their individual teams? It's one thing to think about IT and security and other technology groups, and another to think about sales, who some line of business managers might think their only job is revenue. So what do you do when there's that conflict?
Oh, that's a kind of really bad culture. So I think if you look at the maturity model there at the beginning of the just tick the compliance box, do once a year training, and that's it. Apparently, they're protected. If there is anything happening, you always blame the IT. So it's that kind of classic us and them setup. But as said, then they might have a bad culture of how do you deal with breaches or if somebody makes a mistake. So is the cybersecurity reporting culture then any good? I doubt, because usually then those, organizations, they are not aware that some things have happened. People have clicked the links because it can be 3 months down the line before the criminals, make the attack. So you don't actually know who clicked and what. And then you find that person and you end up sacking them. So it's like that sends absolutely a wrong message. So often you find that if that's the security culture, then you have quite a big problems in your organizations. In general, with the culture as well, it might not be very supportive for the employees, and it might be not open for communication. People are afraid to report incidents. They are afraid to, do more than the mandatory training. They're afraid to say, actually, I don't understand this, and just somehow do the, end of the training questions and say that, oh, we changed our behavior, although they did not. So yes, there is, I would say, those organizations, please get in touch.
Good advice.
So you have, you've got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of interesting reports. I think one of the things I found most interesting that I wasn't aware of before was SebDB. I love that you've built a database of behaviors. And it's not just a database of behaviors. Everything's categorized. You've got different tiers. Tell us a little bit about SebDB.
So SebDB is Security Behaviors Database. It is the most comprehensive security behavior database in the world at the moment. So nobody else has beaten us to it. And it includes, at the moment, over 70 behaviors. And we are working on the next version that should be coming out very, very soon. So hopefully this spring. And it offers insight of, okay, what are the security behaviors that we can actually target to minimize the human cyber risk and help the organizations. So, for example, it's got account security behaviors. It's got stuff like installing updates, phishing. So it categorizes them by tiers as well. So tiering is 1 to 4, and tier 1 is, definitely the crucial ones, and then whittling down. But all our platform, the product itself, is running with the SebDB behaviors. So we can actually calculate the risk. We can see how much it gets reduced if people take action on certain parts of the security goals. So we can then give data to organizations as well. And as said, we are adding on behaviors there, so it's absolutely not complete yet. And it's a living database, and we are inviting people to collaborate, especially if there are any academics or any other industry people. We have a community group on this, so please do sign up, get in touch with us on that if you wish to take part for the next version, which will be running.
And then I believe it's the cybersecurity quirks stuff that we were talking about, that research we were talking about earlier that you're presenting at the Impact Conference, correct? Yes.
So the Impact Conference is next month. I presented this to the Home Office and NCSC, which is the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre. And there was also Cyber Resilience Network, Protect officers, and police people. So it was a very good reception. We have a policy document coming out of that, which is going to be live as well for people to access. And I will be presenting a short presentation, so not a full 45 minutes like I did for the actual stakeholders, but this will be around 20-minute presentation on 2nd of March. And it will be available online afterwards. So if you're interested, please have a look at the CyberSafe website for that. And at the same time, we are running the conference US times in the afternoon. So we start UK time at 2, which is Eastern time, 9 a.m. And it will be hybrid, so in person and virtual. And there will be virtual networking groups as well there. So please do come join us. We have interesting speakers, including Lisa from NCA and Julie from NIST. I forgot Julie's surname, so my apologies. But she'll be there as well.
Julie Haney.
Yes. So I'm happy to present with such a high-powered woman or speaker list.
Yeah, no, that it looks like a really cool conference, and a nice change from the typical. I don't know. A lot of the conferences that I've gone to, there's a lot of technical stuff, or it's the same management level talks. So this is. I definitely want to learn more about this, and I'm glad to hear that it's hybrid as well. So you don't have to be in the UK.
Yes.
You don't have to be in London to participate.
Yes, it's only for the morning sessions that are not streamed live, but they will be available afterwards. So yes, you can watch them at your own leisure if you like the Quirks project, for example. Or we have at the beginning we had a new speaker there who had some really good research. I think his name was Joseph, but let me correct that one. On the
Joseph Da Silva.
On the yes.
Yep. Good stuff. All right, Inka, thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today. This was a fun chat.
Thank you. Oh, it was fun too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And we've got all kinds of resources in the show notes, links to the different annual reports, links to the conference, links to white papers, to the SebDB that we mentioned. All those links are there. You can go to securityweekly.com/ESW306 to take a look at those links. And yeah, thanks again, Inka, for joining us. Thanks also to Katie and Sean for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a big thanks to everyone watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Next week is a holiday week, so we'll be running an encore presentation of our interview with Marty Resch from episode 293. We'll be back live March 2nd. See you then.